Chapter 10 Summer. Sam Dawkins. So, school ends and we figure, that's that. We got away with it. When we went into the principal's office for that meeting, we all played dumb. Homework machine? What homework machine? We pretended that we didn't know what he was talking about. There's no evidence. Nobody could prove anything. Sam's mom. I was dusting his room and I noticed that nice new computer wasn't there anymore. So I asked Sam where it was. He said Brenton asked for it back. I never called to check to see if that was true. Police Chief Rebecca Fish. In early June, two backpackers came across some junk scattered around the bottom of the canyon, not far from the river. It had obviously been dropped off by the rim. Luckily, the stuff didn't land on them. The backpackers alerted the park ranger. He contacted me. Most of the pieces were too small to identify, but a few things looked like they might have been part of a computer. Who chucks a computer in the Grand Canyon? I put out word to all the companies, organizations, and schools within 10 miles. We have a strict rule against dumping debris in the national park, you know. Visitors want to see nature, not somebody's trash. Miss Rasmussen. I was washing the dinner dishes when our principal, Mr. Wilson, called and told me about the pieces of the computer being found in the canyon. I didn't want to think that my students had anything to do with it, but I couldn't help but wonder. I told him I had a theory about what happened. I guess he made a few phone calls. Judy. That was probably the most humiliating experience of my life. School had just let out for summer, and the four of us were called into the sheriff's office. We didn't know why. Our parents had come, and Miss Rasmussen was there too. They sat us down at this big table, and in the middle of the table was pieces of belch, the busted up keyboard. Nobody had said a word, but we knew what had happened. Sam. So they ask if anybody has anything to say, and we all just sit there, not looking at each other. We could have blamed the whole thing on Brenton. I have to admit, the thought did cross my mind. He invented the thing, right? And he couldn't keep the secret. He invented the catapult too. But I just couldn't rat him out. Brenton was my friend. They had no evidence to tie us to the keyboard. It could have been anybody's keyboard. We could have gotten away with it. But then Judy just burst into tears, and the jig was up. Kelsey. Judy started crying, so I got up and said, "It was all my fault. I did it. Look, Brenton and Judy are geniuses. They shouldn't have be prevented from going to college or doing something great with their lives because they made one stupid mistake in 5th grade. I didn't want Snick to tape their up either. I mean, after his dad died just a few months ago." Miss Rasmussen. After Kelsey confessed, Judy shouted out that Kelsey was lying and that she was responsible for the whole thing. Everybody was shocked. I couldn't imagine Judy doing something like that. Then Brenton started yelling, "No, no, no, this was all my idea." The four of them started arguing about which one of them was most to blame. And instead of blaming each other, they all blamed themselves. They were all apologizing at once. I had never seen anything like it. Thinking it over, I decided somebody else was really to blame. Me. I should have known what was going on months earlier. I was naive. I should have been more on top of things. They did it right under my nose, so I wanted my students to be successful, and I wanted to think they were successful because of my teaching. I guess the sad truth is that I still have a lot to learn about teaching. And I can't be so trusting with students in the future. I'll be more careful next year. I told the kids that they didn't have to go off and invent a homework machine because a homework machine already exists. It's called your brain. Police Chief Rebecca Fish. When the kids were called into my office, that threw a scare into them. They confessed to everything. They seemed genuinely sorry for what they did, so I went easy on them. Made them hike down to the bottom of the canyon on a hot day and clean up the mess. Took them all day. Then I made them come into my office over the summer and say what happened so we get it on record. Far as I'm concerned, this case is closed. Kelsey. I figured that was the end of it. School was over, summer was here. I wouldn't be seeing Snick or Judy or Brenton again until September. I don't know why, but I dyed my hair brown again. Just took out the belly button ring. I guess I thought, nah, it was kind of stupid. Judy. We were leaving the sheriff's office, and I knew that if I didn't say anything, I wouldn't see any of them for 3 months. So I worked up the courage, and I walked up to Brenton, and I asked him if he wanted to go out with me. What would that entail? That's the way he put it. What would that entail? Huh, he cracks me up. So I told him it meant we might get together over the summer, get some ice cream or pizza or hang out and talk and stuff. He said that sounded good to him. So I guess we're going out. I think so anyway. Brenton. In honor of the beginning of the summer, I decided to part my hair on the opposite side of my head. I really don't care about the way I look, but I read on some website that when you flush a toilet in the southern hemisphere, the water swirls clockwise, and when you flush a toilet in the northern hemisphere, the water swirls counterclockwise. So I thought it would be interesting to part my hair in the opposite direction during the summer and winter months. And Judy likes it better this way, too. Sam. I was thinking it over. In the beginning of the year, we all thought Brenton was a dork of the highest order. But I decided that Brenton was probably the coolest kid I'd ever met. And that includes me. Coolness doesn't come from having cool stuff or hanging with cool people. It's not cool to try to be cool. It's cool to try not to be cool. Brenton just does his own thing. He's one of these guys who isn't so uncool that he's cool. You know what I mean? You reach a point where you cross in the line into coolness. Anyway, after school ended, I decided to call him up. He said, "To do what? We don't have any homework." And I said, "I know. Want to play a game of chess?" He said, "Okay." Kelsey. I never thought I'd hear from Judy, but she called me up right after school ended. She said that Brenton and Snick were going to play chess over at Brenton's house, and she was going to go too. And did I want to come? Brenton's parents weren't home, but my mom said it was okay, so I said sure. By the time I got there, Snick and Brenton were already going at it hot and heavy. All year long, Snick refused to play Brenton, and now they were finally playing each other. I mean, it was intense in there. It was like the Super Bowl of chess. The two of them were staring at the board so hard. I thought it was going to burst into flames. I didn't say a word. All I knew about chess was what Miss Rasmussen had told us. I counted up the pieces on both sides, and Brenton had only one more pawn than Snick. That was the only difference, so I knew it was a close game. Every so often, Brenton would mutter something mysterious like, "Classic silicon defense," or, the old Bengok gambit. I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm sure Snick didn't either. Judy. Brenton was sweating and fidgeting and talking to himself. I couldn't believe Snick was giving him a good game. I remember thinking back in September how Snick was so dumb. And now he was holding his own at chess with the smartest guy in maybe the whole world. I was rooting for Brenton, of course. Well, because he's my boyfriend. Kelsey. We took a break to eat some cookies. Mrs. Debauchee had left, and I noticed that Brenton and Judy were holding hands. Holding hands? So I say, are you two going out or what? Brenton just looked all embarrassed, but Judy said, "Yeah, we're going out." I knew it. So while they were off being all lovey-dovey with each other, Snick came over to me and asked me if I wanted to go get ice cream or something after the game. Can you believe that? Sam Dawkins actually asked me out? I tried to be cool about it. I said, "Are you just asking me out because Brenton and Judy are going out? Or do you really want to go out with me?" And he says, "I really want to go out with you. I wanted to ask you out ever since school started, but I was too shy." Him? Shy? Unbelievable. I couldn't resist giving Snick a hard time. I said, "You needed Brenton DiMacci to give you the courage to ask a girl out? How pathetic." Then I said, sure, I'd go out with him. Brenton. It reminded me of the classic Karpov-Karnacki game in 1978. I tried a queenside advantage, but Snick had two aligned bishops clogging up the middle of the board. I offered him poisoned pawn, but he was too smart to fall into the trap. Snick doesn't make dumb mistakes the way he used to. He was a much stronger player than he'd been a few months earlier. I was only up by one piece, but he had the stronger position. I kept looking at the board, trying to come up with something that would trip him up. It was hopeless. Finally, I tipped my king over and we shook hands. He had beaten me. Sam. I tried to be cool about it, but it was impossible. My heart was jumping out of my chest. I had just beaten Brenton DiMacci, the kid who was so smart that he got every kid in America to wear red socks. If I can beat him, that must mean I'm pretty smart too. Judy. So Snick beat Brenton, and I thought nothing could beat that. But then suddenly, the doorbell rang. Brenton asked me to see who it was. I opened the door, and there was a guy in a suit standing there. He looked familiar to me, but I couldn't place the face. Then he sticks out his hand and says his name is Richard Milner. Kelsey. Judy let out a scream from the front hallway. We heard the door slam and we all came running over. She was hysterical. She said it was the guy that she saw on the street. I asked her what his name was and she said Milner. Milner? The guy who was stalking me online? He was right outside the door? Now I freaked out. Sam. Kelsey starts screaming, "Call the police! Call 911!" I didn't know what to do. Judy and Kelsey were screaming and crying and running around like an asteroid was about to hit the house. They said the guy was with the FBI or the CIA and we would all be going to jail. I looked around for a baseball bat or something. I could hit the guy, with it if he tried to break down the door. Brenton. I opened the door. What else could I do? The man was just standing there. Sam. So Brenton opens the door and asks the guy if he's with the FBI. He says no. Brenton asks him if he's with the CIA. He says no. I can't take it anymore. So I ask the guy, who is he and what does he want from us? He says nobody's in trouble and we didn't do anything wrong. That calmed the girls down a little. Judy. The guy showed us his business card. He says he's in marketing business and he works for a company that sells stuff to kids. I asked him why he was stalking us and he said he wasn't stalking us. He simply wanted to talk to us. Sam. I asked the guy what kind of stuff he sells to kids. He says everything. Breakfast cereal, toys, toothpaste, clothes, video games, music. So I ask, what does that have to do with us? Kelsey. The guy says he's been looking for the kid who influences other kids. Like kids who are first to do stuff and then everybody else starts doing the same stuff. Kids who start trends. He's been trying to talk to us for a long time. He said because he thought Red Sox Day. He's been trying to talk to us for a long time. He said because he thought Red Sox Day and Inside Out Day were brilliant and effective marketing plans. If Brenton could get every kid in America to wear Red Sox to school, he said, imagine how much breakfast cereal his clients would sell. Imagine how many toys, clothes, tubes of toothpaste, video games, and CDs his clients could sell. He said he would pay Brenton if he would help him. Sam. Now I'm thinking, how much? I mean, this could be bigger than Mick homework. Judy. Basically, the guy wanted Brenton to help him trick kids. He wanted Brenton to spread the word that certain products were cool so his clients could make money. I didn't think it was very nice, and I told him so. I told him that kids don't need anyone to tell them what to buy. Most toys are junk anyway. We can make up our own minds about what video games to play and CDs we should listen to. We can make up our own minds about what's cool. But of course, it was Brenton's call. He invented the homework machine. He was the computer genius. Brenton. I thought it over. I told the guy I'd like to go into business with him. Judy was really mad. Then I told the guy I didn't want to sell toothpaste and I didn't want to sell clothes or CDs or video games. He says, well, what do you want to sell, son? I told him, I don't want to sell some product to kids of the world. I want to sell an idea, a really good idea that I'd been working on in my head. The guy was all excited. He asked, what's the idea? What's the idea? I looked around like it was a big secret that I didn't want anyone else to hear. Then I whispered it in his ear. Do your homework. The guy left. I don't think he'll be bothering us anymore. About the author. When he was a kid, Dan Gutman always did his homework. That's how he grew up to write cool books such as The Kid Who Ran for President, Onus and Me, The $1,000,000 Shot, Race for the Sky, and The Edison Mystery. Back in time, if you want to learn more about Dan or his books, stop at his website, www.dangutman.com. But first, do your homework. Just so you know, he's also on Facebook, and he's got some really cool read alouds that he's been doing during quarantine. So I hope you go to his website and check out some of his readings. He's an amazing author and very supportive of teachers. So thank you for all you do.